Okay, so I'm going to read some more feminist quotes to you right now. The last one we left off with was Andrea Dworkin. So I'm going to read that one again. So uh, if you like my program, remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to shoot me something on Venmo, my Venmo is at BlackSwan88. Woman is not born, she is made. In the making, her humanity is destroyed. She becomes symbol of this, symbol of that, mother of the earth, slut of the universe. But she never becomes herself because it is forbidden for her to do so. Andrea Dworkin. Women live lives of continual apology. They are born and raised to take the blame for other people's behavior. If they are treated without respect, they tell themselves that they have failed to earn respect. If their husbands do not fancy them, it's because they're unattractive. Germaine Greer. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we're, of course, blamed for this. They make it sound like, oh, it's female nature to self-blame. Well, no. Other people tell us to blame ourselves. That's why we do it. Many men call women sensitive because they don't want to admit that women's pain is men's fault. Valkyrie. Yep, it's basically calling the victim clumsy because you pushed her. Pro-choice rhetoric is the same model as organized crime. Males offer us protection against threats of their own making. Radical Hub. Yeah, absolutely. That's true. Basically, they make it sound like abortion is this big, wonderful solution, this wonderful thing. And really, it would not be necessary if they weren't, like, raping us all the time. Men have pathologized frigid women over the years, as well as demonized those who have sex on their own terms via masturbation or lesbianism. Feminon. Yeah, that's true also. Basically, if you don't want to pleasure men, you have some sort of a problem. And those types of men who put forth those arguments are usually, they've been very good over the years at making those viewpoints just sound organic and valid. So it's not always easy for women to realize that this is just a personal a viewpoint that many men have because they want to benefit themselves. It's not objectively true. The high-heeled shoe is a marvelously contradictory item. It brings a woman to a man's height, but makes sure she cannot keep up with him. Germaine Greer. And oh, those are cute shoes, but I totally agree. Already read that. We're changing ourselves to fit the world instead of changing the world to fit women. Gloria Steinem. Yeah, that's very short and sweet. And I think we could go further and say the same is true of children, of the environment, of disabled people, poor people, just anybody who's marginalized, anybody who has a healthy lifestyle. Like, let's say you want to live off the earth and you want to have a natural family and community-based lifestyle. We need to change the world to fit that instead of trying to change the needs of the lifestyle to fit the capitalist world. Global overpopulation, noun. Condition caused by enforced heterosexuality, mandatory PIV, penis and vagina, sex, and rape. Valkyrie. Yep, that's true. There wouldn't be so many people if we didn't have to have sex with men all the time and have sex in that way. Porn is often actual rape caught on film. Valkyrie. Hashtag Operation Vulva. Yep, that's true. You never know if it's acted out or what. And even if it is just acting, why are you enjoying something that's supposed to be a rape? I think I've read this, but I'll read it again. Women generally have good experiential reason to associate negative values and feelings with penises, since penises are connected to a great extent with their degradation, terror, and pain. Marilyn Fry. Yeah, that's true. A lot of times men like to use their dicks as weapons, and when women start to get penis sensitive, men call us penis phobic and say we're castrating them. But it's like, we're not castrating you, we're just, recognizing how you behave. Left-wing men are interested in liberating women because they want to give women the freedom to have sex with them. Valkyrie. That's true. Are they selling freedom because they want to benefit you or because they want to benefit themselves? It's like if corporations want to give you the freedom to buy whatever you want and coincidentally happens to be their product. Already did that. The system of heroism depends upon women being weak so men can be strong. Susan Faludi. Yeah, absolutely. If you need to make someone else weak so you can feel strong in comparison, then your a strong self-image is harmful to them. It's toxic to them. No man can call himself liberal or radical or even a conservative advocate of fair play if his work depends in any way on the unpaid or underpaid labor of women at home or in the office. Gloria Steinem. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Because, like, if you're just making a woman work, what difference does it make if you fight for her right to vote if you're just making her slave away at home and clean your laundry? I mean, it's one thing if you have like a system where each person chooses to do something and maybe she chooses to do that and you choose to work outside the home, but she's still not getting paid. Even if you do equal parts laundry, like even if you work outside the home and your wife is, getting help when you come home with the laundry, she's still not getting paid for that. So, The essence of oppression is that one is defined from the outside by those who define themselves as superior by criteria of their own choice. Andrea Dworkin. Bingo. If we were to take a fish and judge him on his ability to fly, well, he's going to fail in bird colony. And if we tell a bird that he has to swim, he's going to fail in fish colony. So a lot of times men will do this thing where women fail at, strength, but we're also pretty good at giving birth. So there's that. Men who don't subjugate women are kicked out of the boys' club. Valkyrie. Ha, yep. I think we did this last time. No woman needs intercourse. Few women escape it. Andrea Dworkin. I love the way she phrases that, because whether or not you personally enjoy intercourse, it's something that's, forgive the pun, thrust on so many women that it almost becomes something you have to escape rather than something you can enjoy. And whenever you hear women say, well, I enjoy intercourse, we're thinking, well, okay, in this context, you're almost pressured to enjoy it. So do you really know what you're going to enjoy? Like what you would have enjoyed if you didn't have that pressure. Lesbians are shunned because they don't worship the penis. Valkyrie. Yep, that's true. Because you'll see in the LGBT movement, lesbians are still treated like shit. Sexual assault leaves victims literally speechless, but testimony is required to convict. Coincidence? Radical Hub. Yep, it's true. I mean, you have to say what happened so that the person isn't just getting, put on trial for no reason, but there are so many things in courtroom sexual assault trials that I think are pretty much put there to make it easier for the rapist to get off. Males do indeed deeply identify with unwanted fetal tissue. Oh yeah, I think I've read this, but this is the whole quote. Males do indeed deeply identify with unwanted fetal tissue, for they sense as their own condition the role of controller, possessor, and habiter of women. Draining female energy, they feel fetal. Since this perpetual fetal state is fatal to the self of the eternal mother, the hostess, males fear women's recognition of this real condition, which would render them infinitely unwanted. For this attraction/need of males for female energy, seen for what it is necrophilia. Not in the sense of love for actual corpses, but of love for those victimized into a state of living death. Mary Daly. Yes. These men don't care about the babies, otherwise they'd be changing diapers and supporting programs for single mothers. They are interested in the baby in the sense that it's being taken care of by the woman the way they want to be. The strong commitments and loyalties that most women have to males is very often rooted in their heterosexuality, a practice beyond criticism. Radical Hub. That's true. Some people, I'm sure, would be naturally heterosexual if we were allowed to just develop, but heterosexuality is pushed on women for the purpose of getting us to put up with men's shit. Some men are shitty men. Some men are okay, but those men who are shitty really benefit from heterosexuality, especially in a society where if you're a woman, loving someone means putting up with literal abuse. Women do not overanalyze men. Men are just more likely to say confusing, ambiguous, and problematic things to women than women are to men. Of course, women ask more questions. Valkyrie. Exactly. It's another one of those things where men push you down and call you clumsy. They make us analyze them by doing crazy shit, and then say that we overanalyze because of who we are. Banning prostitution by arresting prostitutes is like banning slavery by arresting slaves. Valkyrie. Oh, hell yeah. If you want to stop it, stop the customers. Aging in women is unbeautiful since women grow more powerful with time and since the links between generations of women must always be broken. Naomi Wolf. Yep, that's true. In general, you could say aging is considered unattractive because you're getting closer to death, but I think that it's seen as wrong in women in specific is because older women tend to have a clue about what is wrong with a lot of men. And unlike some 20-year-old, they're not going to be like, oh, he's fine. But I think today's 20-year-olds are getting smart as well, so that's why the entitled men are all freaking out. All patriarchists exalt the home and family as sacred, demanding it remain inviolate from prying eyes. Men want privacy for their violations of women. All women learn in childhood that women as a sex are men's prey. Marilyn French. Now, yeah, it's getting better, but back when she wrote that, that was probably true. And what would happen is, they'd say, don't tell me what to do with my wife and daughter. Don't tell me what to do in the privacy of my own home. And your immediate instinct is, well, yeah, you don't want the government bursting into your home. But the privacy they want, it's not privacy to do what they please. It's privacy to do what they please at the expense of someone else. And the women learn that anything goes in the home. And this is why those types of men are so eager to marry women. It's not because they love us so much. It's because they know that once they get us into that marital home bliss state, once they get us into that marital house, then we're fair game. I think this is translated as love is the opiate of women, the way religion is the opiate of the masses. While women loved, men governed. And I forget who said it, but it's totally accurate. And I apologize, I can't really pronounce Spanish that well, but I think it's el amor ha sido el opio de las mujeres, como la religión el de las masas. Mientras nosotras amábamos, los hombres gobernaban. So, yeah. Basically, men don't love enough and women love too much because, like I said on one of these previous ones, we learn that loving someone means to let them shit on us. If being treated like a sex object is so great, then why aren't men lining up to be porn stars and prostitutes? Where are the hordes of passive, naked male Game of Thrones characters that the male-controlled entertainment industry could easily create? Valkyrie. Good question. Good question. If it's so good to be a whore, where are all the male whores? If it's so good to have your butt stuck up in the air, why aren't Bill Gates and what's his name, Elon Musk sticking their butts up in the air? It must not be so great. Lesbians are hated because men cannot conquer them with the penis via sex. Valkyrie. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The gynecological profession and the popularizing media have combined their efforts to make the poisoning of women appear acceptable. Just as popping the pill is both normal and normative for younger women, so is estrogen replacement therapy for their mothers and sisters. Mary Daly. Yeah, absolutely. I think I read this before. But yeah, they're trying to tell us that our very hormones and our bodies are wrong. Emancipated women found out that the honesty, generosity, and camaraderie of men was a lie. Shulamith Firestone. And I agree with her. And I'd like to point out that the solution is not to go back to conservatism where men have to be forced to treat us properly. First of all, a man in that case is not going to really be treating you properly because he's just going to find sneakier ways with which to cheat on you or abuse you or whatever. I'd much rather have men allowed to treat us like shit, because then we know which ones will take advantage of the opportunity and which won't. I'm not saying they should be allowed to, but I'm saying, I don't want a system where they're just forced to behave properly on the surface. Pornography represents women as objects who love to be abused and teaches men practices of degradation and abuse to carry out upon women. Sheila Jeffries. Yep, absolutely. I do think that you have to have some sort of a bent towards that direction in the first place. I feel like a man wouldn't treat a woman that way unless he were naturally capable of doing so, no matter how much porn he watched. It's not like if a man watched gay porn, he would become gay. He would just be like, I'm not watching that. And I think that any healthy man is not going to watch pornography and turn into a woman hater. And even if you get turned on by watching women get treated like shit, you still know mentally that it's the wrong thing to do. So when men blame pornography for their behavior and attitudes, I'm like, no, you're porn didn't cause you to behave that way. It just exposed your bad attitude. Men's need to dominate women may be based in their own sense of marginality or emptiness. We do not know its root, and men are making no effort to discover it. Marilyn French. Yeah, absolutely. Why would they? They're benefiting off of it. Not that you're really benefiting, because I don't really consider abusing somebody to be enjoyable, but they feel like it's a benefit because, they don't have to do any work and they get to have people do what they say and all that shit. I don't know. Whatever the gender of the participants, all pornography, including male-on-male gay pornography, is an imitation of the male-female conqueror-victim paradigm, and almost all of it actually portrays or implies enslaved women and male master. Gloria Steinem. Oh, I 100% agree. That's why when they say, well, men beat up other men all the time, I'm like, yeah, but you call them pussies and bitches. I don't see men beating up other men and calling them their N-word or their Jew or their atheist or their poor person. They call them their bitch or their woman. It's because the male against female setup is the most widespread and universal kind of setup in which one person shits on the other. Sometimes literally. Powerful old words whose metaphoric force has been faded under the phallocratic rule include spinster, Webster, weird, hag, witch, Sibyl, muse, and many others as well as goddess. The waning of such words' powers is part of the program of elimination of female powers. Mary Daly. I think what she's saying is that women are embarrassed to be called these things, or they don't want to be called these things because they don't really provoke a lot of fear anymore. You laugh at an old spinster or hag or a witch. But really, these women are actually powerful because they don't listen to men. Men's sexual freedom has depended upon their ownership of women's bodies. Sheila Jeffries. Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of these men will say, you're just trying to prevent me from getting laid. And it's like, no, only if getting laid depends on hurting other people I am. Your right to swing your fist ends where my nose starts. I myself cried when I got angry and then became unable to explain why I was angry in the first place. Later, I would discover that this was endemic among female human beings. Anger is supposed to be unfeminine, so we suppress it until it overflows. I could see that not speaking up made my mother feel worse. This was my first hint of the truism that depression is anger turned inward. Thus, women are twice as likely to be depressed. My mother paid a high price for caring so much, yet being able to do so little about it. Gloria Steinem. And that's completely true. A lot of times, it's dangerous to be angry, so you shut down. And the reason anger is inappropriate in women is because when you're angry, you want to defend yourself and defend others. Anger spurs you to action, and those actions might overthrow the system that allows men to take advantage of women. Of course, those types of men are not going to like that. Heterosexuality is pushed onto women to keep them addicted to and dependent upon men. Valkyrie, absolutely. And that's exactly why you get this bullshit about how women and men love in different ways. Women are from Venus and men are from Mars. Because if men were expected to take the plunge when falling in love the way women were, then they would also be vulnerable and unable to abuse the other party. Only women are supposed to fall in love in such a way that we allow the other person to take advantage of us. And granted, there's some level of vulnerability. There's some amount of that. Anytime you want to have a healthy relationship with somebody, there's some level of risk, because the only way to completely not risk anything is to strike the other person first. And that's not love. That's not even being a proper, you shouldn't even treat a stranger that way. But a lot of the enthrallment that is supposed to accompany love when it's in a woman is like, stuff that you wouldn't even need to do, stuff that you wouldn't even need to do to be loving toward the other party. Like, okay, never defend yourself against them. Never bring up a criticism, even if it's totally valid. Never, always let the other person go first, no matter what. Never exit the relationship, no matter what. Stuff that's not necessary. Stuff that's not a necessary level of self-giving in order to make a relationship work. Women are supposed to go further than that. And men are not supposed to. And when we notice the discrepancy, we're just told that men and women love in different ways, and just, put it back in the box. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind, it is abomination. Leviticus 18:22. That means simply that it is foul to do to other men what men habitually, proudly, manfully do to women. Use them as inanimate, empty, concave things. Fuck them into submission and subordinate them through sex. Andrea Dworkin. Oh, hell yeah. I heard something somewhere that said that men are afraid that gay men will treat them the way men treat women. And I'm totally here for that. Masculinity is simply a conglomeration of the personality traits necessary for the patriarchal soldier rapist. Physically strong, emotionally cauterized, rational, domineering, cruel. All of this is supposed to add up to handsome as well. Likewise, femininity is ultimately a description of the personality that results from trauma and powerlessness. Weak, passive, yielding, emotional, hypervigilant to the needs of the dominators and desperate for the dominator's attention. Lear Keith. And what I like about her quote is, with the masculinity, she makes it clear that all these completely, technically unrelated things, physically strong, logical, cruel, those three things are completely different. You can be logical without being cruel, and you can be logical without being physically strong. You can be logical without being unemotional. Logical just means your ability to put facts together to reach a conclusion. You can do that with or without being emotional. Now, you can be physically strong without choosing to be cruel. Physical strength is just something you're born with. It's just your body. And yeah, it's supposed to add up to handsome as well. I totally hear you. It's like puke. And I love the way she makes it clear that femininity is a result of trauma and powerlessness. It's not something that women are taught to be. I mean, it is, but mostly it just, on its own, these characteristics usually result from being treated like shit. Like, being passive. Most people aren't passive until they realize it's dangerous to act out. And they're hypervigilant to the needs of the abuser, because if they don't meet his needs, they'll get bashed. And desperate for the dominator's attention, because the dominator and the society around him have convinced her that his attention and his favor are something to hold in high esteem, which they are not. The millions of missing girls worldwide are due to misogyny, not abortion. Radical Hub. 100%. If you want to end abortions, stop sticking your dicks in us and stop creating poverty. To women, the sexual liberation movement slogan, Free Women, meant freedom. To men, it meant free women, as in free potatoes, free party, free beer, Valkyrie. Yep, absolutely. A rejection of the way a woman speaks is often a way of blaming or dismissing her without dealing with the content of what she is saying. Gloria Steinem. Absolutely. And the same thing is true when adults tell children that they have some sort of a syndrome because of the way they speak, when they want to be rational and pedantic. It's the adult's way of telling the child to shut up. Male dominance in society always means that out of public sight, in the private ahistorical world of men and women, men are sexually dominating women. Andrea Dworkin. I think what she means by this is regardless of what goes on in public, like regardless of whether women have the right to vote, regardless of whether we're queens or presidents, whether we can be on the firefighter team, men are treating us this way when we get home and we go to bed with them. And nothing is going to change really in our lives unless it ends there. If women are differentiated only by superficial physical attributes, then men appear more individual and irreplaceable than they really are. Shulamith Firestone, absolutely. That's why they need us to be identical, because then we ignore the fact that they are identical in how they behave. And, because masculinity really does not allow you to be yourself. You have to be this big dickhead. And dickheads are pretty similar to all the other dickheads. The assaults against our ability to realize our own presence come from the media, education, all of the professions. Degraded caricatures of women, from hardcore porn images to mindlessly adoring wives of politicians, instill self-loathing, woman hatred, and terror. Mary Daly. That's true. Even when you think like, okay, I want to look good just for me, are you really trying to look good for you? Or are you looking quote unquote good because you think that that's the way to be successful? Well, what are you succeeding at? You're just succeeding at attracting men, and you're usually attracting a very specific type of man who considers looks important and who considers a very specific type of look important. And if the only model you have as a woman is a woman who's pretty or she's devoted to her husband, that's really kind of limiting. It's like you need to be able to be something outside of that. Maybe you want to be an archaeologist. Maybe you want to be a historian. Maybe you want to collect books. Maybe you want to rescue people from dictatorships. Who knows? Those are all things that women can do as well as men, that we all need to be doing. If being a sex object is a compliment, then why do men use sexual comments and rape threats as insults? I don't know. I think I've read this before. Valkyrie. Sexism is not the fault of women. Kill your fathers, not your mothers. Robin Morgan. I think I've read that before, but it's a classic. Pornography is not egalitarian or gender-free. It is predicated upon the inequality of women and is the propaganda that makes that inequality sexy. Sheila Jeffries. Yes, that's why when men will say, well, we can both watch porn. It's like, okay, so a black person and a white person can both watch a video of a white slave master whipping his slave. Yeah, they're both watching it, but they're both watching inequality. It's like if you're a Jew and you're watching a Nazi throw you in an oven, throw a Jewish person in an oven, that's not equality just because you can watch that on your own. And I don't think it's equality either to have a video in which a Jewish person throws a German person in an oven. I don't think that's equality either. Like, maybe that's not a good example, but like, let's say an innocent German. So I don't think that pornography where women dominate men is really good either, because it's unhealthy, first of all. And second of all, promoting domination is misogynistic in a misogynistic society, because even if one or two women like promote domination against men, they're still promoting domination generally, and domination generally is used against women. So it's wrong innately. It's wrong like universally, and in a misogynistic society, it will only just add more fuel to the fire. That's male domination of women specifically. Sort of like how there was a black slave owner in the early Americas. He owned white slaves. This is very, very rare, but his act of owning slaves promoted slavery, which mostly damaged other black people because they were normally the slaves and the white people were normally not the slaves, if that makes sense. I don't believe rape is inevitable or natural. If I did, I would have no reason to be here. If I did, my political practice would be different than it is. Have you ever wondered why we women are not just in armed combat against you? It's not because there's a shortage of kitchen knives in this country. It's because we believe in your humanity, against all the evidence. Andrea Dworkin. See, I agree with her that rape is not inevitable or natural, and it's not every man who behaves that way or thinks that way. However, good kitchen knife can't really be too bad a thing to carry around. So I do think there are some men who just can't be educated out of that attitude. And I think if you fall into that attitude in the first place, you're pretty much, forgive the pun, you're damaged goods. The system of heroism depends upon women being weak so men can be strong. Susan Faludi, absolutely. I think I read this just right now. And what she's saying is that men are being so selfish by expecting women to be weak just so they can feel like heroes. That's not fair. Woman is shut up in a kitchen or in a boudoir, and astonishment is expressed that her horizon is limited. Her wings are clipped, and it is found deplorable that she cannot fly. Simone de Beauvoir. Yep. Women are blamed because we are forced to not realize our own lives. This is more accurate about women in the past, but women back then were like, they weren't allowed to vote, they weren't allowed to do this, they weren't allowed to do that. And then everybody blamed them for not being too intelligent. It's like, well, okay, if you make me that way, I'm going to be that way. Today, I think the same thing is happening with the Millennial and Generation Z generations. I think that a lot of children and teenagers and even young adults today are being criticized for being lazy or not hardworking, when in reality, our options are limited. I've heard of this thing called executive dysfunction, which supposedly causes you to not be able to make good decisions. And I think it's just more that there's a lack of good decisions out there with this economy the way that it is, and with society. Today in society, you can't really get along with people that easily because people expect really, really arbitrary and unrealistic and unnecessary stupid things and stupid gestures and stupid social practices, such that if you're just trying to get work done or you're trying to live your life, it's impossible. And you're deemed to be a failure when in reality, society is just not letting you in. So instead of women these days, it's happening a lot to younger people. and just people in general who want to have a productive life. I think I've already read this one. Women are afraid in a world in which almost half the population bears the guise of the predator, in which no factor, age, dress, or color, distinguishes a man who will harm a woman from one who will not. Marilyn French. That's true. We're criticized when we are mistrustful of men, but there's no other demographic information like his color, his religion, that's going to really give us a good handle on whether he's going to be dangerous. The group of people that are most dangerous to women in general are men. Television has been a major instrument of this ritual reinforcement of self-destructive mechanisms, so that the majority, drugged by the perpetual presence of the politics of rape on the TV screen, sees it all but sees nothing. The horrors of a phallocentric world have simultaneously become more visible and more indivisible. Mary Daly. It's true. We see rape all the time on the screen, but knowing what rape means, interpreting it the correct way, it's worse than ever. Like, if you see characters raping each other all the time in the movies and the TV, and it's portrayed as just normal or just human nature, you're simultaneously seeing more rape happen, but you're also not seeing what it really means and how terrible it really is. Like, if you're a woman who's watching all that, you'll think that's just how men express love. And you're actually going to be less able to resist the attitudes of the culture. A woman reading Playboy feels a little like a Jew reading a Nazi manual. Gloria Steinem. Yeah, that's true. Because it's a manual for hating the other person. Even if Playboy doesn't teach readers to kill women, the hatred is on the same spectrum. A man attaches himself to a woman, not to enjoy her, but to enjoy himself. Simone de Beauvoir. Oh, yes. The lesbian is not accessible to the penis. She does not view herself as a natural object of fucking and denies that men have the right or duty to fuck her. Marilyn Fry. And she says that in the article Lesbian Feminism and the Gay Rights Movement, in which she mentions that men are supposed to use intercourse, she calls it fucking, in order to dominate women, because we are supposed to associate being in love with men with them fucking us. We are supposed to associate love and sex. So we're supposed to fall in love with a man when he has sex with us, and falling in love includes all these things where we let him treat us like shit. So men who want to treat women like shit want to fuck us as much as possible to get us addicted to them. And lesbians do not allow that. So they're the enemy. And gay men are the enemy because they don't perform their natural duty of subduing women through the dick. Sexual liberation exists to entice gullible, liberated girls and to serve the men who enjoy them. Andrea Dworkin, absolutely. I would not call these women gullible because they're... I mean, come on. For all she knows, the man just wants her to loosen up because he truly wants her to enjoy herself. I mean, female friends tell each other to do that, you know. Heterosexual female friends will say, enjoy yourself and loosen up. And I'm sure there are some men out there who enjoy sex with women who truly do want women to be liberated for women's own benefit, but you never know which one is which. So it's not really a good idea to give into this fuck men all the time bullshit. If you really want to do it and you know the consequences, then fine, do it. But please know what you're getting yourself into, and also recognize that when you do this with men, you give energy to them. And if the man turns out to be bad, then you've just rewarded him for being a bad man. And even if you don't feel bad about having sex with him and you don't you don't get hurt, you're still giving him energy with which he can harm other people. A man can be called ruthless if he bombs a country into oblivion. A woman can be called ruthless if she puts you on hold. Gloria Steinem. Ha ha ha. The idea that sex is a need or right means an underclass of people will be forced to provide this need or right. Women, especially prostituted women. Valkyrie, yep. I think I've read this one before, and the point is, well, you know, if you, what if nobody ever wants to have sex with you ever? Does that mean you have a right to force somebody? What if nobody joins a prostitution? You have to force people into it? No. Nobody needs sex. You won't die without it. If God is male, then male is God. The divine patriarch castrates women as long as he is allowed to live on in the human imagination. Mary Daly. Absolutely. Even religions that purports to have a balance, such as when they say in Catholicism, ooh, well, God is male, but the Holy Spirit is female. Mary is a female. It's like, yeah, but God's the most powerful image in that paradigm. So coupled with the fact that men are already physically stronger than women, that it's not balanced. I've already read that. Women do not understand that they're punished through sexual use for being beautiful, and the lengths to which men go to protect themselves and their society from contamination by ugly women who do not induce a lustful desire to punish, violate, or destroy. Though men manage to punish, violate, or destroy these women anyway. Andrea Dworkin, she's right. Women think that they're being privileged by being beautiful, and in some ways they are, but not really. You're just the hen who's being fattened up to go to the slaughter first. And yes, misogynistic type men do punish ugly women as well, just not in the same way. They're a little more honest about it and more direct. So, yeah. Also, if you're beautiful, you might end up thinking that men are in love with you because you're taught to think that sexual attraction always means love and always occurs alongside of love. So unlike an uglier woman, a conventionally uglier woman rather, you might actually end up experiencing a lot more gaslighting and betrayal because you think the man loves you when he really doesn't. Whereas if you're fat or unattractive, he just tells you to fuck off, ugly bitch, from the get-go. But yeah, both sets of women are abused by men in different ways. No wonder male religious leaders so often say that humans were born in sin. It's because we were born to female creatures. Only by obeying the rules of the patriarchy can we be reborn through men. No wonder priests and ministers in skirts sprinkle imitation birth fluid over our heads, give us new names, and promise rebirth into everlasting life. Gloria Steinem, oh my fucking God, yes. Every single step of the baptism is literally just an imitation, a poor imitation, of women actually giving birth. And men, because they are, well, you know which men I'm talking about. If you're not that kind of man, I'm not talking about you. But those types of men are very jealous of women's ability to give birth. And instead of supporting us through that journey, they want to slag us off and co-opt it for themselves. Oh, and of course, since they have technology now, they're trying to actually physically give birth instead of just do it metaphorically through their religion. And you might actually say that maybe, possibly, the reason science is becoming so popular is because men are finding it easier to dominate women through technology than through the pulpit. So instead of, oh gee, humans just got smarter and that's why they're scientific instead of religious these days, maybe it's really a male domination thing where male science is more popular than religion because it proves easier at dominating women, and the other stuff is just a cover for that. So that's my little analysis. One group of people that get a lot of PTSD are soldiers who've been in combat. You know who gets more PTSD, has higher rates of PTSD? Women who have escaped prostitution. That tells me that the war that men wage against women is actually worse than the wars they wage against each other. Lear Keith, absolutely. Women's chains were forged by men, not anatomy. Estelle Raimi, absolutely. Absolutely. Most of the things that people consider to be like difficult because of a female body, if you think about it, it's really just the clothing or the medicine or the devices or whatever it is. Even things like childbirth, women don't have to get pregnant, but men have balls all the time. And yet, because it's considered inappropriate, rightly so, to go around kicking men in the balls, but it's considered appropriate to fuck women into pregnancy once every year. Female bodies, because they experience childbirth more often than men experience being kicked in the balls, female bodies are considered to be inferior, but really they're just being messed with more often. Pro-choice, oh, we already read that. Divorced men are more likely to meet their car payments than their child support obligations. Susan Faludi. I don't know when this was written, but if that's true, that's awful. Men in general seem to employ their reason to justify prejudices rather than to root them out. Mary Wollstonecraft, who is Mary Shelley, Frankenstein's mother. Yeah, that's absolutely true, because you'll notice that the types of men who always go on about how logical they are, they're never logical when they're talking about feminism. Let's put one lie to rest for all time. The lie that men are oppressed too by sexism. The lie that there can be such a thing as men's liberation groups. Robin Morgan. Absolutely. Men can be harmed by sexism, and men can even be hurt by sexism against men. If there was a group of women who was tormenting men because they were male, and that male happened to fall down into their cellar somehow, yeah, he'd be hurt. But it's not something that a men's liberation group would be appropriate for, because it's not widespread in society. That kind of a women's group would be very, very, very small and not very powerful. And the idea that like men are oppressed because they oppress us and it's a tiring work being oppressive all the time, if it really were, they would stop doing it. That's like a person punching you in the face and complaining that their knuckles hurt. Male culture was and is parasitical, feeding off the emotional strength of women without reciprocity. Shulamith Firestone, absolutely. If you look very closely at a lot of couple practices and marriage practices, it's really the woman doing stuff for the man without any guarantee of reciprocal energy. Like, she has to clean the toilet and stuff at home, and there's no guarantee that she's going to get paid for that. And, yeah, it would be a little awkward to, you'd have to involve the government in the home life to ensure she got paid. And the point is not to argue that the government should or shouldn't be involved. My point is that being the housewife, which usually the woman's the housewife, it's the role which does not guarantee that you're going to get reciprocated. Or like the expectation that the woman is going to stay home with the babies. That's the harder job. Or the expectation that like, you can have sex with him, but you might get an orgasm, and he definitely will, because if he doesn't have an orgasm, it doesn't count as sex. That's something where, that's a definition of that. That's a good example of this. Childbirth is more admirable than conquest, more amazing than self-defense, and as courageous as either one. Gloria Steinem. Yeah, pretty much. Men seem unable to feel equal to women. They must be superior or they are inferior. Marilyn French. And that's true. But even if that were the case, even if there was only one option or the other, I would think any decent person would choose to be inferior because they wouldn't want to hurt the other person. Because so many women are perfectly okay being inferior to men. We just don't want to hurt them. So even if it wasn't a stupid thing to believe that you could either choose one or the other, they're still choosing the wrong thing. Like, even if they thought those are the only options, they still chose the wrong option, I think. It's just not reciprocal at all. I think I've read that. Gay men, like other men, make jokes which vilify women, women's bodies, women's genitals. In some circles, contempt for women and disgust with female bodies are the other side of the coin of gay men's attraction to men. Marilyn Fry. Yes, I think that's from the article I mentioned called Lesbian Feminism and the Gay Rights Movement. And she's right. Not every gay man is like this, but you have to understand, men want us to think that their hatred of us is some corollary of having sex with us. Like, sexual attraction means hatred of women, means domination. Because of this idea, men want us to put up with the idea that sex means degrading sex. So part of this is to get us to think that the sex which they use to dominate us is some sort of love. I don't know where I'm going with this. I said that wrong. But like, a lot of men will attach the idea of degradation of women to sex, so that women who wake up and become feminists are led to believe that they don't want sex and that sex is what they have a problem with. And I think those types of men make this connection because they want to deprive liberated women of having sex and having fun and being fulfilled sexually. So they say, oh, well, our oppression of you, that is sex. It goes hand in hand with sex. That is sex. So we don't end up having sex because we think it's oppressive somehow. Also, it blinds us to the fact that the hatred of women is a lot deeper than just wanting to have sex with us. And that's why gay men who don't want to have sex with us are able to hate us as well. The hatred of women by men goes a lot deeper than just sex, although they most likely prefer to act it out during the sex act because that's the most, that's the activity which most emphasizes the male and female duality. It's a male body part doing this to a female body part. It's like, so I don't know. I think I've read this one. Read it. Los hombres tienen miedo de que las mujeres se rían de ellos. Las mujeres tienen miedo de que los hombres las asesinan. Which I know I said that wrong. It means men are afraid women will laugh at them, and women are afraid that men will kill them. I forgot who said that, but it's 100% true. So when men say we're just as oppressed as you, I'm like, yeah, how often do you carry your keys between your fingers? Critiques of rape, pornography, and prostitution are called sex negative without qualification or examination because so many men use these ignoble routes to get laid. Andrea Dworkin. Yeah, absolutely. They like to equate sexual abuse and objectification and degradation and selfishness with sex generally. So when we deny them those degrading behaviors, they can say we're denying them sex. I find that those men who are personally the most polite to women, who call them angels and all that, cherish in secret the greatest contempt for them. Germaine Greer. And this reminds me of the Lundy Bancroft quote. He's an anti-abuse counselor, where he says that abusers like to put women on pedestals, but when women fall off the pedestal, they become nasty because, they like to hold women responsible for behaving perfectly. Read that. Men's ideas about what women are have been formed from their ruling caste position and have assigned women characteristics that would most advantage their masters, as well as justify men's rule over them. They do not represent truth, but have been promoted as if they were, with the backing of science and patriarchal views of biology. Sheila Jeffries. Yes. So like when men call us irrational and they like twist things to make it look like we're being irrational, and they have scientific articles and like newspaper articles just randomly pop up that, look totally random and it's easy to see why women believe this stuff because it looks legitimate, because it's not like just the men who are abusing us are spouting this nonsense. They got the entirety of society to put forth this bullshit, so it looks like it's organic and it looks like it's genuine and it looks like it's kind of universal. The common erotic project of destroying women makes it possible for men to unite into a brotherhood. This project is the only firm and trustworthy groundwork for cooperation among males, and all male bonding is based on it. Andrea Dworkin. Yes. She means when men high-five each other when they're degrading women or catcalling women, or, their favorite song comes on about fuck me this, fuck me that, and they all cheer, And when she says all male bonding is based on it, I don't think she means all instances where men are bonding with other men, but she means when men are bonding with other men because they are men. That's what it means, because that is what masculinity means in our culture. So if you have a male bonding by definition event, it's probably about that. That's the psychology behind it, is we hate women, women serve us, ha ha ha, isn't that wonderful? Doesn't that suck to be a woman? Oh, by the way, I had no clue women hated being women, even though I don't want to be one myself. No other group in America has so had their identity socialized out of existence as have black women. When black people are talked about, the focus tends to be on black men, and when women are talked about, the focus tends to be on white women. Bell hooks. Yes, absolutely. As you'll notice with feminism, there's some racism in the sense that a lot of white women will ignore the concerns of black women. Like white women want to be considered equal in the workforce and all that, whereas there's a lot of black women who've already been working all this time and they want to be able to be housewives and be home if they choose to. And when black people are talked about, the focus tends to be on black men, yes, and a lot of black women have complained about how black male abusers who are accosted by police are treated as heroes, but the black females that they're beating up, who are also black, are getting ignored. The nature of women's oppression is unique. Women are oppressed as women, regardless of class or race. Some women have access to significant wealth, but that wealth does not signify power. Women are to be found everywhere, but own or control no appreciable territory. Women live with those who oppress them, sleep with them, have their children. We are tangled, hopelessly it seems, in the gut of the machinery and way of life which is ruinous to us. Andrea Dworkin. That's true. When you have certain races and Religions of people who are oppressed, it's usually in a specific area, but women are oppressed all over. And unlike certain races or religions, we live among the people who are the opposite demographic group. Under patriarchy, every woman's son is her potential betrayer and also the inevitable rapist or exploiter of another woman. Andrew Dworkin. Yes. I don't think it's inevitable, but it, during the time when she was writing, it was nearly inevitable. The fact that we are all trained to be mothers from infancy on means that we are all trained to devote our lives to men, whether they are our sons or not. That we are all trained to force other women to exemplify the lack of qualities which characterizes the cultural construct of femininity. Andrew Dworkin. And I think what she means here is she's saying that even if we're not married to a man or his mother, we're trained to always give them the benefit of the doubt, to always cook for them, to always support them, to feel bad for them, to believe their excuses. And women will often tell other women, "Ooh, don't be so hard on him." And that's just total bullshit. We need to get away from that attitude. For a mother, the project of raising a boy is the most fulfilling project she can hope for. She can watch him as a child play the games she was not allowed to play. She can invest in him her ideas, aspirations, ambitions, or values, or whatever she has left of them. She can watch her son, who came from her flesh and whose life was sustained by her work and devotion, embody her in the world. So while the project of raising a boy is fraught with ambivalence and leads inevitably to bitterness, it is the only project that allows a woman to be through her son, to live through her son. Andrew Dworkin. Yes. And a lot of women are criticized for wanting to sort of mother and smother their boys. And I'm sure a lot of the criticism is valid in some cases. But we don't leave women with a lot of options, And obviously this was written quite a long time ago because we are allowed to play games now. We are allowed to have jobs and stuff like that. But when she was writing, that's basically what you had to live like if you were a woman. You couldn't have all these things. So if you had a son, well, good. Now, obviously, when she's talking about, Jesus Christ, when she's talking about this inevitable bitterness, she means that like what she said here, she means that the man is almost definitely going to grow up to be shitty to women, at least during her era. And, in our era, too, there's a lot of shitty men, but it's inevitably bitter because even if you're able to live through him, he's treating people like shit. And it's hurtful to know that he's going to betray you like that by treating you like shit and also by treating other people like shit. A man can be a hero if he's a scientist or a soldier or a drug addict or a disc jockey or a crummy, mediocre politician. A man can be a hero because he suffers and despairs, or because he thinks logically and analytically, or because he's sensitive, or because he's cruel. Wealth establishes a man as a hero, as so does poverty. Virtually any circumstance in a man's life will make him a hero to some group of people and has a mythic rendering in the culture, in literature, art, theater, or the daily newspapers. Andrew Dworkin. And she's right. And this reminds me of how, I don't know if it was her quote or another one that I read today, in which men want to make women weak. I think it was a Susan Faludi maybe. Men want to make women weak so they can be heroes and rescue us. Their heroism usually depends upon us being in a shitty situation, and they would rather be heroes in name only than actually be heroes and just refuse to be heroic at our expense. And hero worship of men, we can see what happened with people like Harvey Weinstein and whoever, in which, like Bill Cosby, in which giving hero worship to a man makes it easier to cover up his character, in which if the man happens to be bad, if he reaches hero status from, being poor, being rich, or being whatever listed above, he gets a smokescreen to do whatever he wants. So my voice is getting tired, so I'm going to leave off with that today. I'm going to make another video later. So if you enjoyed, like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to donate to me, donate on Venmo at BlackSwan88. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.